Hey guys, how are you guys doing? I miss you all so much and I cannot wait to see you again, and I can't wait to get hugs again. But for right now, I'm out here today on my front porch. As some of you know, I've been a little bit sick, and so I've had to kind of stay away from everybody, even my own family. But so I stay in my room, but sometimes I get to come out here on the porch. So I'm going to share my porch time with you guys today. My family's right in through this window right here. They're in the kitchen, and they're going to be doing some things to help me out with this lesson today. This is going to be our Easter lesson, and if you came and picked up a pack from the church, then you've got some of this stuff. If not, then you can just use what you have at home. And I'm going to throw it to Michael in at the kitchen and let him get you started on your cooking project.
Hi guys, today we are making resurrection rolls, and so here are our ingredients right here ready for us. We have marshmallows in this bowl. We have a yellow substance, what is that?
Melted butter.
Melted butter, and then here we have some cinnamon and sugar. Alright, cinnamon and sugar. Alright, so JC and Caleb are going to show us how to make the resurrection rolls. JC, take it away.
And we have crescent rolls here. So you take a marshmallow and you're going to roll it in the butter to fully cover it. And then after it's covered in butter, you're going to roll it in the cinnamon.
It smells really good.
Once you have it in the cinnamon, you're going to set it on the crescent roll and roll it up. After you've rolled it up, you're going to want to pinch the ends really good so that the marshmallow doesn't explode out of the sides when it's baking.
Alright, you got that, Caleb? Alright, let's see if you can do it. Good. Alright. Now put it in the cinnamon. Alright, roll that up. Alright, now once you get all your crescent rolls made, JC, what do we do with it then?
You're going to put it in the oven at 350 for 12 minutes.
Alright, so 350 in the oven for about 12 minutes, and we'll see what happens then. Alright, alright, we're about to put this in the oven, and while we get them ready, Miss Shelley is going to lead us in a devotion.
Alright, so when that comes out of the oven, that is going to be so delicious. But until then, we're going to do a little Bible study, and then we'll go check on those. Alright, so I have something that I do with my kids every year since they were teeny tiny. We've been doing this. They're called resurrection eggs. See them? And they help me tell the story of Easter. So let's get started. First, we're going to, for each egg, we're going to have a Bible verse, and then I'm going to open the egg and talk about it. So, we're going to start in Matthew, and all of our verses come from the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they were written by people who experienced these great things that Jesus did, and they wrote about their experience. And so we're going to start in Matthew chapter 21, the last part of verse 1 through 3 and 6 through 8. It says, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there, with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, tell them that the Lord needs them, and he'll send them right away." And then down in verse 6, the disciples went and did as Jesus instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt, placed their cloaks on them, that's kind of like their coats, and Jesus sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them out on the road. Now, last Sunday we call that Palm Sunday, because people would cut the palm leaves off of the trees and they would lay them out so that Jesus could enter. Now, let's open our first egg. Got our blue egg here. Let's see what's in it. We have a little donkey. Okay, a little donkey to help tell our story. I'll put him right there. Alright, did you know that back in this time, kings would often enter into cities on donkeys like this? And so people would stop what they were doing and they would watch the king enter the city, or somebody important. And on this day that Jesus rode into the city, the people were so excited to see him because they believed that this was a new king coming in to fill their lives with joy and to save them. All right, let's go on to our next egg, Matthew 26, verse 14 through 16. It says, "Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, 'What are you willing to give me if I hand him over to you?' So they counted out for him 30 silver coins. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over." Okay, so let's see what is in our next egg. We have silver coins. Silver coins. Now, not everyone was happy to have Jesus as their king. Some people only pretended to be happy. And one of these guys, his name was Judas. He was a really good pretender. And there were other men who hated Jesus so much because they thought that they were going to lose their power if people believed in him. And so they wanted to kill him. But they needed somebody close to him that could help them get close to Jesus. And so they found Judas, and Judas said he was greedy for the money, and so he said that he would help these men capture Jesus if they would give him 30 silver coins. Okay, so we have some silver coins to remember that part of the story. All right, let's go to the next one. Matthew 26, verses 27 through 28. "Then Jesus took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying, 'Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins.'" Now, let's see what was going on during this. All right, we have a cup. We have a cup, a little cup. Now, what is happening here in the Bible is that Jesus and all his friends, his disciples, have gathered together in a room, and they're having a supper, which we refer to it as the Last Supper, because now they didn't know then, but now we know that was the Last Supper that Jesus was going to have with his friends before Easter. Okay, and so so we have the cup, and Jesus raised his cup, and he told them that this symbolized the blood that he was going to shed. Now, they didn't completely understand what that was all about until later. They didn't realize that he was about to die. And so, but he was kind of showing them that he was, and he wanted them to remember this special night. And even today, we have what's called the Lord's Supper, and we drink the little juice, and we take the little bread, and that's to remember what Jesus did for us on the cross, that he gave his blood, that he died for us, so that we could know him, so that we could have a relationship with him and be forgiven. Okay, let's move on to our next egg. We're going to go to Mark chapter 14, verse 32 through 34. Let me find it. All right, Mark chapter 14, 32 through 34. "So they went to a place called Gethsemane," that's a big word, "and Jesus said to his disciples, 'Sit here while I pray.' Then he took Peter, James, and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. 'My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death,' he said to them. 'Stay here and keep watch.'" All right, let's see what is in our orange egg. All right, we've got some praying hands. Can you see little hands? They're praying. Now, after the supper, Jesus took all his disciples and then up to a garden, and he specifically took 3 of his closest friends even farther in with him, and he went to pray because he was so distressed, it says. That means that he was dreading. He wasn't looking forward to what he was going to have to do. He knew what he was going to have to do, but he wasn't looking forward to it. And so he went to go spend some time with God, with his Father, to talk to him about it and just tell him about it. He knew he was going to die, and he was sad about that. So I want you to kind of think about some things that you get sad about in your life. And what's the first thing that you do? Do you ever go to God when you get sad and talk to him? Because he wants to hear from you just like he wanted to hear from Jesus when he was sad. All right, let's go on to John. We're going to go to the book of John, chapter 19, verse 1. It says, "Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged." Flogged. That is beaten. Okay, let's see what's in our green egg. We have a strip of leather, like a whip. Did you know that they whipped Jesus? Now, that was just a little piece of leather, but the whip that he was whipped with, put it out here, was a lot bigger than this, a lot stronger, a lot more painful, and they whipped him so much that he bled. All right, let's move on. Matthew, we're going to go back to Matthew chapter 27, verses 27 through 29. All right. "Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. Then they twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand and knelt in front of him and mocked him." That means they made fun of him. All right, so let's look in our yellow egg. Let's see what we're talking about here. Oh, we have our crown of thorns in here. Crown of thorns. Not only did they whip him, they put this crown of thorns on his head to kind of make fun of him, kind of saying, "Oh, you're a king, are you? Here's your crown." So they put this crown of thorns on him. So Jesus is going through a really tough time, and he knew he was going to it, and he did it willingly for us, didn't he? All right. I want you to remember that through as we talk about all these things, that at any time Jesus could have said, "Okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore." But he chose to continue to go through it because he knew in the end it ultimately was for us, to save us. All right, let's go to John chapter 19, verses 16 through 18. All right. "So the soldiers took charge of Jesus. Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull. Here they crucified him, and with him and two others, one on each side, and Jesus was in the middle." Okay, let's look in our light orange egg. Okay, we have a cross made out of 3 spikes, 3 nails. So when they took him to the cross, they nailed him on the cross with spikes that were much bigger than this. These were just some small spikes that might have looked like those spikes. They nailed him to the cross, and Jesus didn't fight. He didn't put up a fight. He went willingly, like I said, even though he had never done anything wrong. He didn't deserve any of this punishment. He did this so that he could take on all the wrong stuff that we have done. All right, let's go on to John chapter 19, verses 23 through 24. "When the soldiers crucified Jesus, they took his clothes, dividing them into 4 shares, one for each of them, with the undergarment remaining. This garment was seamless, woven into one piece from top to bottom. 'Let's not tear it,' they said to each other. 'Let's decide by lot who will get it.'" By lot is kind of like well, we'll see in this little egg. See what's in here. Dice. Has anybody ever played a dice game before? You roll dice to see who the winner is. That's kind of what they did. They played a game so that they could find out who got to keep Jesus' clothes. Now, that seems really cruel that while Jesus was going through all of that, they were playing a game. And I want you to remember that Jesus, during this time, looked on them and loved them and even forgave them for what they were doing. All right, let's move on to John chapter 19, verse 32 through 34. Okay, "The soldiers came and broke the legs of the first man who had been crucified with Jesus, and then those of the other. But when they came to Jesus, they found he was already dead. They did not break his legs. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced Jesus' side with a spear, bringing a sudden flow of blood and water. All right, let's see what's in this purple one here. We have a spear. So the soldiers came by to check to see if Jesus was dead. And they saw that he was, but just to make sure, one of the soldiers stuck the spear in his side, just to make sure that he was dead. Now, as we continue to learn more and more about what Jesus went through, sometimes it can make us sadder and sadder. And it is true. It's a really sad story, but I think it's an important one for us to understand the suffering that he went through for us. Okay, and now we're going back to Matthew. We're going to be finishing up in Matthew. So Matthew 27, 57 through 60. As evening approached, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who had himself become a disciple of Jesus. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body. Pilate ordered that it be given to him. Joseph took the body, wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, and placed it in his own new tomb that he had cut out of the rock. He rolled a big stone in front of the entrance to the tomb and went away. All right, let's see what's in this blue egg. A piece of cloth. So Joseph was a man who believed Jesus was who he said he was. And so he wanted to give Jesus' body the respect that he thought it deserved. So he got the body and he wrapped it and got it ready for burial and placed the body even in his own tomb, which at that time it was like, it's kind of like a little cave. And so they put his body in a cave and then they rolled this big stone in front of it. All right, let's move on to Matthew 28, 2 through 4. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. All right, so it's getting exciting, right? Let's see what's in the pink egg. All right, in the pink egg we have a rock. Now this is a teeny tiny rock, but the rock that they put in front of the tomb was a giant rock, probably heavier than a car. So there's no way that somebody could have snuck in and rolled it away. Only God could have done that. And so, let me put my rock out here. Alright, now, it only took one angel to roll away the rock, and the guards were so scared that they put guards in front of the tomb because they didn't want people to come and take Jesus' body. And so the soldiers that were put in front of the tomb were so scared that they fainted. All right, now let's go to our last verse, Matthew 28, 5 through 6. The angel said to the woman, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who is crucified. He is not here, he is risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay." Okay, and so Mary and some women went to the tomb the next day to kind of take care of Jesus' body, to do some things to it, to rub some scents on it that they used to do back in those days. And so when they got there, they found something really surprising, right? So let's see what's in our last egg. It's empty. There's nothing in our last egg. Just like when the ladies went to the tomb and there was nothing there because Jesus was gone. Now, they probably at first were very confused and didn't know what was going on. But then the angel told them that Jesus had risen. And I can only imagine how excited they were. The Bible tells us that they go out and they're so excited and they go out and tell people about what had happened, that Jesus was alive. Now, again, I talk about how Jesus didn't have to go through any of this, but he did it for us. He was crucified on a cross in a very painful way. But 3 days later, when the women went to the tomb, he was gone. He came back to life, and he's alive today, and he's gone up to heaven, and that's where he lives. And so I want you to think about that when we feel sad and we feel lonely and we feel discouraged and things aren't going our way, that we serve a God who is alive. He's not dead. He conquered that. He conquered death, and he's alive today. And we can know him if we believe that this story is true and that Jesus is who he says he is, and that he paid our punishment on the cross for our sins. Then we can know him, and we can put our trust in him, and he can be our Lord and be our Savior. And if you want to talk to your parents about that and what that means, I'm sure they would love to talk about that this Easter. So as we think over all these things that happened over 2,000 years ago during this week, from Palm Sunday, last Sunday, to Easter Sunday, which is coming up, that's a lot of things that happened that are very, very special in our history. So I hope that you take time to talk about that with your family this week. Now, we're going to go check on my family in the kitchen and see how they're doing.
All right, we've got our resurrection rolls out of the oven. They smell delicious. Once they're out and cooled off a little bit, if you want, you can brush some of that butter on the top of your rolls and then sprinkle a little of the cinnamon and sugar on top of it. You want to do that, Caleb? Just in case they're not already sweet enough, that'll make them taste even better. All right. Now, big question is, why are these called resurrection rolls? And why is this a good treat to make this particular week? All right, you want to get that one? All right, let's open it up. Let's see what happens. Because inside, what does that look like?
Empty.
It's empty. So right inside the rolls that we just made, now there is an empty space, a hole, and it reminds us that on Sunday, when the ladies went to the tomb, what did they find?
Nothing.
Nothing. That tomb was empty, just like this roll. So, hope that's a fun treat that you can make with your family this week, and let it remind you that the tomb is empty, that Jesus is alive, and enjoy these rolls as you eat them together.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoy your special treat, and I can't wait to see you in the coming weeks. Bye.